It's just a few days now until the 100 starts again in 2022, and we're continuing our squad previews. Next up is the Oval Invincibles. Welcome to the 100 Club. My name is Tom, and I'm joined again by Rich for the penultimate edition of our squad previews for the men's competition of the 100 in 2022. If you're new here, welcome. It's great to see you. And if you're returning, thanks for coming back. As always, if you want to get more of this stuff, then hit the subscribe button down below and hit the like button if you like it, because that just helps us out. You know, it's nice to do it, right? Without too much further ado, let me introduce Rich. How you doing, Rich?
I'm very well, Tom. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Thank you very much. And we're going to have a chat about the Oval Invincibles tonight, yeah?
Absolutely.
What do you remember their 2021 campaign?
They had a useful campaign. They reached a sort of a de facto quarterfinal. Of course, it wasn't a quarterfinal, but they had a game. I think it was their last group game against the Southern Brave, and the winner of that would make it to the eliminator. And they narrowly lost in that one, so missed out on the elimination stages. But they were in the hunt, weren't they, until their final group game? So expect them to be competitive this time again.
Yeah, there was a thing, when I was growing up, if you lost to the team that eventually went on to win it, that was almost as good as, being in the final itself, right? So maybe they're claiming that one, but they're looking to go a little bit further this year, make it through to that final stage. And they've built some interesting players in their squad. So let's get them right up now and have a good look. Straight up the top there, then clearly one of their big money signings was Will Jacks in at 75k alongside Jason Roy. That looks like a pretty powerful opening partnership, right?
Well, it depends which Jason Roy comes along, I suppose. He's not in great form. I think it's 59 runs in 80 balls across his last 5 innings that I've seen in white ball cricket. And it's one of those questions, isn't it? That is it just temporary? Is he just one good innings away from getting right back into the Jason Roy that we all know, or is this, as happens to all players, part of a longer term decline? Clearly, something he wants to get right with the T20 World Cup coming up later this year. But Will Jacks will be a useful opening partner for him. They'll know each other very well from the Surrey connection, and. It's one of sort of the better ones in the league. I mean, Jacks is coming off a reasonable last season as well.
449 runs.
Exactly. A strike rate of 142. So no slouch there at all. But he'd be a bit pedestrian compared to who's coming in at number 3 for the new look Invincibles, right?
Yeah, well, you're quite right. If you'd have asked me when the draft was conducted for the 2022 edition of the 100, back in, when was it? End of February, beginning of March, that Riley Rousseau was going to be one of the most exciting prospects for this summer. I don't think anyone would have believed this, right? But what a season he's had for Somerset. And he's got himself back into the unthinkable position of being back in the South Africa squad, which is probably something they weren't banking on, right?
Yeah, they'd be alarmed if he gets himself into the test squad after showing up. But he had an incredible last season. He was the top scorer in the competition, wasn't he? With 623 runs.
Number two
was he? Of course. To
James
Vince, okay, the perennial leading run scorer. But no, he got his runs at a shade under 200 strike rate, 192, which is absolutely incredible. Like I said, he's got himself back into internationals, and I think he'll slot in very nicely into that number 3 role. Nice for a left-hander after 2 right-handed openers, and bring a bit of balance to that batting lineup.
Yeah, and he's done pretty well, just creaming some England bowlers around for 90-something in the second T20 international as well. So I think we can all say we're looking forward to a bit of Riley Rousseau, perhaps surprisingly. And behind him, a pretty familiar face to a lot of the franchise game. In fact, a couple of familiar faces, some big names, really, in the grand scheme of world cricket. And Sam Billings, the wicket-keeping batter. Tom Curran batting up the order in the list that you've given here at 5. Talk a bit about that Tom Curran placing.
Yeah, so I noticed that Surrey had used Curran up the order a little bit in the blast this season, and I wondered if they would try and take advantage of that as well. I think batting orders tend to be flexible in the 100, but I think that given the fact that it's 20 balls fewer than a standard T20, teams will want to get their hitters up the order as much as they can. Now, whether that's the same in every game or whether teams are going to look at matchups in order to who to promote, depending on the bowling attack they're facing, the ground, etc. I'm not sure, but I could see Tom Curran playing more of a role with the bat this season for the Invincibles. And I think Sam Billings, captain wicketkeeper, comes in at 4 as he batted last year and as he's been doing in quite a lot of franchise cricket.
Okay, fair enough. You've made your pitch. I mean, Sam Curran is the other option, clearly up there and around there, who has been batting a little bit higher for England. I think he was in at 5 in the latest T20, but clearly can do plenty with the bat. And we know a lot about Sam Curran and his talents as a bowler as well. Will certainly be put to good use. The other, huge signing for them really was Sunil Narine, who came in at the top price bracket, £125,000. Not a player we've seen a huge amount of on English shores, I suppose, over the years, but very familiar to IPL fans, a lot of CPL fans, and in fact, might even lose a little bit at the end of the season. So I think it's just worth explaining if what effect the Caribbean Premier League might have on the 100 this year, because it does overlap for about the last week or so. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's going to be a question of if teams are in contention, they might be able to hold on to their players for a couple more games. Whereas if they're out of contention, probably the players will slope off. I'm just purely speculating here. I don't know what's in the contracts, but it's always an issue, isn't it, with such a packed schedule? And it's not just with the franchise league, also with international commitments. We're seeing quite a lot of the players coming in out of the tournament, depending on when they're available.
Yeah, and it is my understanding, and I think I've seen this from Matt Roller, the journalist on ESPN Quick Info, that I think all 4 of the West Indies players probably could be called back by the West Indian Cricket Board for CPL duty, perhaps. So, Sunil Narine with Oval Invincibles, Curran Pollard with the London Spirit, another top draft pick. You've got Dwayne Bravo at the Northern Superchargers, and
Andre Russell.
Andre Russell, thank you. Could see a short-term overseas replacement, maybe just for the last little bit, as you say. But we will see.
But just talking about Narine as a cricketer, I mean. I think of him a little bit more as a bowling all-rounder these days. I mean, he's one of the best short format bowlers are going. I mean, for a long time, he opened in the IPL, his time at KKR. I don't think he's quite as good with the bat these days, but I think he still could be promoted and be a little bit destructive. But I think his principal weapon at the minute is bowling. That's why he's a little bit further down the order than he might have been earlier in his career.
Yeah, and whilst we haven't seen a lot of him on these shores, we did see him for Surrey in the Blast, of course, and was bowling under 6 economy, which is pretty fabulous in the short.
Picked up 14 wickets.
Yeah, he'll be good. I think that's a fair guess if I was anyone. Okay, and the talent keeps coming in this squad. It is quite an impressive lineup. In Reece Topley, who's having the renaissance of a career with England wickets aplenty. Danny Briggs, who's an extremely experienced and capable spinner, and then a hugely exciting young talent in Mohammad Hasnain, right?
Indeed. Danny Briggs, the only man with more than 200 wickets in the T20 Blast. So, hugely experienced. Yeah.
Wow.
So as a bowling lineup, you look at that, you think you've got the 2 left arms in Topley and Curran. You've got the pace of Hasnain. You've got the left arm spin of Briggs. You've got the sort of mystery spin of Sunil Narine. And then you've also got Will Jacks can bowl it a bit as well. So that looks a pretty effective kind of bowling group, which maybe frees up an additional spot to sneak in an extra batter. And I've got Jordan Cox in my 11 coming in somewhere in the middle order. He's 7 on the scorecard there. Maybe comes in at 6. I'm not sure. But I think he's sort of one of those players with a bit of a wow factor. Man of the match in the Vitality Blast final last season, and an incredible fielder as well, which I think is sort of a useful string to have in your bow. So I wonder if he sort of sneaks in. I mean, the opposite to that is where you go with an extra bowler. You could go with somebody like Pat Brown, who was just recently drafted in to replace Atkinson, who was injured. If you wanted that flexibility. So quite a lot of options for old Tom Moody down at the Oval.
Yeah, I think it's possibly one of the better balanced squads overall. I presume the batter you're not sneaking in, probably on this occasion, probably isn't Rory Burns, right?
Rory Burns will be involved. I mean, he didn't really rip up trees in the Blast for Surrey. He's obviously there as an England contracted player, but not really involved in the Test side at the minute. So. He'll be around. I'm not sure if I'm picking my best 11 whether he features at the minute. But
Okay, back to the more likely lineup then. That is a very well organised, competitive squad. And one of the most interesting things about it is I believe that there are all but no tickets left for the Oval games this year. So the Oval Invincibles home games have pretty much all sold out, which is incredible news for them. You're going to have a huge crowd down at that famous old ground cheering them on. Good news, right?
Excellent news. I mean, obviously, it was the first season, 100. People were excited, wanted to see what was going on, and the crowds were good. Second edition, you always wonder if it would be a bit more subdued, whether the novelty factor will have worn off. But the fact that those games have all sold out already shows that there's a tremendous interest in the competition second time around. So looking forward to that.
Well, I, for one, are excited. And if you are too, then do let us know what you think of that Oval Invincible squad down below. Your comments always interesting, and we'd love to hear about what you think the best lineup is for the Oval Invincibles. Rich, thank you very much for your time.
Cheers, Tom. Bye.